Thanks everybody for joining us today. Thanks for your patience as we got started. Very quickly before I turn the floor over to PHEAA Board Chairman, Representative Mike Peifer, I want to let folks know that we are recording today's call. So we'll send around a link to the recording after the news conference is over. And also, if you would like to ask a question, you can type that question into the question box in the GoToWebinar dashboard, and we'll read through those questions at the end of our speaker's introductory remarks. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to contact Keith New. His contact information is in the press advisory, but just in case, his email is knew@feaa.org. Without further ado, let me turn the floor over to Representative Peifer.
Okay, thank you, and good morning to everyone. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us in today's virtual news conference, and really to stress the importance of what's going on with our graduating seniors out there today. Very simply, my name is Mike Peifer. I represent the 139th House District. I am a member of the Pennsylvania General Assembly. I am also the chairman of the board of the PHEAA Board of Directors. And back in March, during our board meeting, we did extend the deadline for filing the paperwork for the grant program. We extended the deadline to May 15th because we did realize the interruptions that were facing families and students based mostly because of the closure of schools. Our students typically have procedures in place through their local schools, whereby they have the ability to meet with guidance counselors and PHEAA programs to help them and to walk them through these types of procedures so they can get the financial aid they need, which obviously helps them in making decisions that are extremely important to them and their future with the costs associated with higher education. So again, we extended that deadline to May 15th, which is rapidly approaching. I know we have a number of people on here today from the media outlets, and we just want to stress to them that we really need the students and families to fill out this FAFSA form. It's a free form. It's the paperwork that really triggers all grants on the state and federal level. And we've organized a number of people from our administration and our school teams that go into our high schools and work with guidance counselors and our families. So we organized that today to answer some questions for all of you, so you can help spread the word that we realize families are under severe stress, students are unsure of their exactly what they want to do, but we also want to stress to them, you still need to fill out the paperwork because the May 15th time period is a hard deadline. So with that, again, it just shows you how crazy it is. My two sons are in 8th grade and 10th grade, and the other day my 8th grade son said to me, he goes, my gosh, he said, my 10th grade son was depressed that he had to hand back in his spring sports uniform. And my 8th grade son said, he goes, I really hope, I'm not sure what they're gonna find in my locker when we go back, because I think I've got sandwiches and fruit and all sorts of things in there. So again, this pandemic has definitely, obviously changed our way of lives, but we really need to stress to everyone the importance of this deadline. So I am going to hand over the conference now to William Lindsay. Mr. Lindsay is our Pennsylvania School Services Manager, and he can answer some of the questions with some of our staff on the processes where we can help students and parents at this time. So again, thank you all for joining today, because we really need you to help spread this word. Thank you.
Great. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as Chairman Peifer stated, my name is William Lynn. I manage our Pennsylvania School Services team, which is responsible for all of the outreach within the Commonwealth. Thank you for the opportunity to highlight and discuss the financial aid process for Pennsylvania students and families looking to pursue a higher education and the overall impact that COVID-19 has had on this process. To date, as Chairman Peifer has indicated, we have seen a sharp decrease in the number of FAFSA applications. We are looking at nearly 31,000 fewer FAFSA applications compared to the same period last year. Also seems to be the trend nationally. A similar impact can be seen in the number of Pennsylvania grant applicants as well. As a result of this sharp decline, the Pennsylvania State Grant application deadline was extended to May 15th for the 2020 and 2021 academic year, with the hopes of giving students and families more time to complete their application. With that said, a proactive approach is critical in order to ensure that all students, most vulnerable students, are on track to take advantage of the financial aid they may be eligible for. We certainly understand the impact that COVID-19 has had on some families, and we want to make sure that they are fully aware of the resources that are available to them, including the extension of the Pennsylvania State Grant application. The potential to miss out on a Pennsylvania State Grant award by missing the deadline could have a significant impact on their ability to pursue a higher education, not to mention increase the amount of loans they would need to borrow and the potential to have trouble repaying their debt after college. As a reminder, if first-time applicants are considering pursuing a higher education in the 2021 academic year, and again, these are typically all of your seniors that are currently seniors or any others that are looking to start school in the fall of 2020 or spring of 2021, we highly encourage that they complete the FAFSA along with the Pennsylvania State Grant as soon as possible and prior to the May 15th deadline to be considered for financial aid. So how do students do that? Students should go to studentaid.gov on either their desktops, smartphones, or any other devices to complete the FAFSA. Once the FAFSA is submitted and they are on the actual confirmation page of the FAFSA, students can apply for the Pennsylvania State Grant. If, for some reason, a student misses the Pennsylvania State Grant link on the confirmation page of the FAFSA, they will still have an opportunity to complete the application. PHEAA will reach out to them directly and advise them on how and where to complete the Pennsylvania State Grant form a few days after completing the FAFSA. Even students who are undecided or on the fence about attending or taking college courses in the fall, we highly suggest completing these forms so that they don't miss out on any financial aid they may be eligible for. Our intent is to get the word out to students and families that these resources are still available, and then it's not too late for them to apply. But it's important that they take action now. So at this point, I think we can open it up and welcome any questions that our participants have related to some of these items we just discussed.
Yes, thank you, Will. And we also have available today to answer questions Nathan Hench, Senior Vice President of Strategy and Public Affairs for PHEAA, and Elizabeth McCloud, Vice President, State Grant and Social Services. First question we have for Nathan. With numbers being down so significantly, why not further extend the grant application deadline or simply waive it altogether?
Thank you, Keith. And it's a really good question. And on the surface, that would probably, make sense to a lot of us, that we would just simply eliminate the state grant deadline. However, PHEAA, in partnership with the Pennsylvania General Assembly, we really work hard to map current demand or upcoming demand for the 2020 and 21 academic year with the appropriations committees and the governor's budget office to make sure that we have the right resources allocated to the program in order to fund the students that anticipate going to higher education this coming fall semester. So that's to echo what Chairman Peifer and Mr. Lindsay just shared. That's really important, that if students at this time are anticipating that they might be going to school in the fall semester, that they complete the FAFSA. It's free, and that really gives a more accurate accounting to the PHEAA agency as we start to model out how many students might be going on to higher education this coming fall. So we would really encourage folks to complete the application by May 15th, so that we can have as accurate of a reporting, so that we can, in partnership, work with the General Assembly to make sure the resources are there, so that students know how much grant they can anticipate for the fall and spring awards. Thank you, Keith.
Okay. And now we have a question for Elizabeth McCloud. What advice do you have for students who are contemplating possibly delaying their initial fall college enrollment plans due to concerns around the pandemic and a potential second wave of disruptions coming in the fall?
That's a good question, and we have been hearing that a number of students who had originally planned to enroll full-time in four-year schools in the fall are now thinking about some other scenarios as they consider what might unfold over the coming months. It's very important for students, as they're thinking through these other options, to realize that they could still be eligible to receive Pennsylvania State Grant Program awards if, for example, they delay their full-time enrollment until the spring term, or if instead of enrolling in the fall full-time, if they enroll part-time, they could still potentially receive a state grant award, or if they enroll mid-year or at any point in the year in an associate's degree program instead of a four-year program that they might have initially planned to enroll in. In all of those scenarios, students could still be eligible for a state grant award, but it's important in all of those scenarios that the students have applied by this May 15th deadline. So anything we can do to get the word out to students who are considering these other options, but they still want to get their FAFSA application in now, that will ensure that when they get to the spring term and are enrolled, that they will have eligibility for any state aid they're eligible to receive, as well as federal funds.
Okay, thank you. And now for Will, what types of outreach does PHEAA perform within the Commonwealth when promoting financial aid options? And in addition, are there other resources available for families to use?
Great. No, that's another good question, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to discuss what we do for our Pennsylvania students. In general, as part of PHEAA's mission of creating affordable access to higher education, the Pennsylvania School Services team is molded and comprised of 13 access partners that are strategically located throughout the Commonwealth. These are the go-to PHEAA staff members that share and provide all of the resources that we have for higher education to all of our audiences, including students, families, educators, schools, and that includes secondary, post-secondary, community partners, and to the general public. The activities that they provide range from conducting financial aid nights, where we guide students and families through the financial aid process, the FAFSA completion sessions, where we help families understand and complete the FAFSA. So, as Chairman Peifer stated initially, a lot of the outreach that we do is with our guidance counselors, career counselors, and typically a lot of these activities are held in person. Obviously, we've had to adjust the means and how we share a lot of this information with our audiences. So what we've done is we've started to offer statewide webinars on financial aid. To date, we've completed 2. We've got our third one tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. The first 3 that we've completed are capacity. We do have 2 more financial aid webinars we're going to be offering throughout the month of May on May 14th and 21st. So for those interested in potentially joining us for these webinars, and again, geared for students that are seniors that are looking to potentially attend college, but also these financial aid webinars are good for juniors and sophomores and even freshmen because it provides an overview of the process and gets them familiar with key terminology. To register for any of our webinars, you can go to PHEAA.org, and within our training sites and events, you can take a look at what type of webinars we offer and when they are. To assist with the actual FAFSA application process, the Access Partners are available for the month of May, every Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. to help. And this outreach that we've done is specific to seniors or others that are looking to enroll into a higher education this coming fall and into spring 2021. But we're doing FAFSA sessions on a one-on-one individual basis. So on our website as well, under PHEAA.org, within Partner Access, you can find a listing of the 13 access partners that we have and the territories that they manage. Their contact information is on there, so I would highly encourage students and families that are looking for assistance to reach out to them directly. Thank you, Keith.
Okay, thank you. And we are getting some questions coming in, but just a reminder, if you have any questions, please type them in to the question block and we'll get them answered for you. Next one here is probably best for Elizabeth. If colleges have to go online for 100%, how will that affect students receiving the Pennsylvania State Grant?
That's a good question. So I can speak to what has happened so far to maybe inform what we'll be looking at going forward. During the winter and spring terms, we had students who started out in classroom and then had their classes moved to online. And many summer coursework was moved to online as well as a result of the pandemic. And our board was recognizing these adjustments that students were having to deal with and allowed for some relaxation of some of the program requirements so that we could continue to serve students through the state grant program in the same way that we had been able to do while they were in classroom. And so we would potentially be looking at similar types of adjustments in the fall. It's too soon right now to say for certain what the fall is going to look like. We wish we knew exactly what was going to happen, but that gives an idea of what we might be seeing come fall.
Okay, thank you. Next question for Nathan. What happens to the grant program if the state budget is not passed on time, and how will that affect students?
Sure, thank you, Keith. It's another really good question, that if the state budget is delayed or not passed on time, and that has happened in the past for the agency and in general for the Commonwealth budget. And what we have done in the past is the board looks to see, what we anticipate as the available resources for the program, and we go out with conditional awards and work with schools to message to students on what their anticipated conditional award would be, subject to the passage of the Commonwealth budget. So we'll have to continue to monitor the situation as the budget progresses and see if we need to take that course of action.
Okay, and we'll touch on this a bit, but for Elizabeth, is this drop off in applications unique to Pennsylvania, or is this a national trend?
That's a good question. So we are seeing that while we definitely have a reduction here in Pennsylvania, we're not alone amongst our fellow states and their applications to their state aid programs. Nationally, I can tell you that renewal applications are down about 5%. And we are definitely seeing a reduction with both renewal applications compared to last year and just our grant application pool as a whole compared to last year. So I think it's a reflection of the impact that the pandemic is having across the country, that states throughout the country are seeing similar declines.
Okay, thank you. Will, this individual was aware that college enrollments had been trending lower because of demographic shifts. Why do we believe that the sharper decline is a result of COVID-19?
Sure. Good question, and something we continue to really look at. So, and Elizabeth, feel free to jump in as well to add. But I think what we've noticed in related to FAFSA applications and Pennsylvania state grants, we've seen a trend over the last couple years that has been fairly consistent in the smaller percentages, where we have seen a decline in the submissions in FAFSAs and Pennsylvania state grant applications. Now, and we're always trying to compare our data at a point in time on a year-by-year basis. And what we've seen with this particular year and where we are, that trend is much higher. And as I mentioned earlier in my introduction, there's nearly 31,000 less FAFSA applications. So yes, enrollment has some factor, but not that sharp of a decrease that it's completely tied to enrollment. So there's a couple assumptions we can make as a result of COVID-19 is the uncertainty of students and their decisions for fall, in addition to not being sure on whether or not they should fill out their information to see if they want to pursue that education online or brick and mortar. So I think those are some of the factors. Now, we directly work with a lot of different types of communities, and depending on the region that you're in, access is a concern as well. Oftentimes, we work with families and students through counselors, through libraries, through different methods that students don't have access to that at this point. So that's why we're really focusing on virtual outreach using our social media teams, a lot of the partners that we have to get the message out. And one point I wanted to touch on as well, briefly, is we've talked a lot about first-time applicants, but I think the other concern is we need to make sure that those that are already enrolled in college continue with the process of resubmitting or renewing their FAFSA application, because that's also a pretty big factor in their options in pursuing a higher education and being eligible for potential grant money that they may be eligible for.
Okay, thank you. And for Elizabeth, do your applications to date reflect where the greatest decline has been, whether among new students or returning students?
So we are seeing a reduction in both groups. I can tell you that we were consistently seeing a smaller reduction in first-time applicants that accelerated once the imposed restrictions kicked in mid-March. We are seeing a large reduction for the summer from returning students who would submit a separate summer application, and to date those applications for this upcoming summer term are down over 30%. So that would be reflecting the returning student pool more than new students. So we really are seeing reductions on both sides. Nationally, I can tell you that the National College Attainment Network is seeing a fairly significant reduction from applications from returning students that are from households that have lower levels of income. And so that's concerning for next year because, as Will said, we want to make sure that students who have already started their post-secondary education are able to complete that and don't have that disrupted at this point. And of course, filling out the FAFSA is a really important part of that.
Okay, thank you. Slightly different, but will the impact of COVID-19, and this is for Nathan Hench, will the impact of COVID-19 affect PHEAA's ability to supplement the Pennsylvania State Grant Program for 2021?
Sure. So, everything's very fluid with the budgetary process, and the governor came out with a $30 million increase proposal. And of course, this was all happening before COVID really impacted the Commonwealth's economy. And in concert with that, the agency, through the PHEAA Board of Directors, signaled that we would be able to do a $30 million match supplement to that. Of course, everything's up in the air right now, and we continue to monitor the financial impact that COVID is having on the agency, as well as having routine conversations with the governor's budget office on what might be available for the 2020 and 21. So over the next month or so, I'm sure we're going to be having conversations with our board as well as the appropriators in the General Assembly to see how much resources, but it would really be the hope that we would at the very least hope to strive to hold the grant awards level from 2019-20 to 20 and 21, but we really have to see how that all plays out.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder, if you could submit your questions. This is the last question we have, so if no more questions coming in, we will be wrapping up shortly. But this question goes to Elizabeth. How will all of this affect, and does it affect, other fee administrators programs such as Ready to Succeed, Chaffee, or the PATH program?
Well, that's a good question, and we definitely have had impact on all of the special programs that PHEAA administers since the start of the pandemic, and have been making adjustments in all of those programs to try and accommodate students so they don't see disruptions to the aid that is available to them. But the FAFSA is, the foundation application for financial aid need-based programs. And so if students aren't submitting the FAFSA, then they are not going to be able to be considered for other programs, whether it's something like the Ready to Succeed Scholarship or a program like the Pennsylvania Targeted Industry Program that assists students in shorter term programs of study that wouldn't be eligible for the state grant program. Students in PA-TIP, they need to file the FAFSA as well. And so the primary message here is that even if students are not at all sure what their plans are through the next 12 months, we strongly encourage them to file the FAFSA within this next week so that they have the opportunity, as their options unfold over the next year, to receive as much need-based aid as possible.
Okay, thank you. And that does appear to be the last question. So if anyone has questions after this event, please send them to knew@pheaa.org, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, and just a quick reminder, because a couple of folks have asked, we'll have a link to a recording of today's news conference shortly after we close out here. So we'll make sure that everybody who RSVP'd gets a link so that they can watch that. And thanks to our speakers, and thanks to Representative Peifer for being on as well. He's very busy, so we appreciate him taking the time to do this. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.